Welcome back. You're still watching the daily debate and continuing the third item of the top stories for tonight, and it comes from the Palestinian factions meeting in the New Alamein city in Egypt, as the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said on Sunday that the internal divisions among the Palestinian factions should be ended immediately and that the elections are the means for achieving this end. Abbas was reading the final communique of a meeting of the Palestinian factions general secretaries that was sponsored by Egypt in the New Alamein city today. The Palestinian president described the meeting as an important step for launching a dialogue over the Palestinian cause and called for forming a committee to continue the dialogue over different issues related to ending the rift and achieving national unity. Abbas urged the committee to finalize the tasks as soon as possible, saying that he hopes the upcoming factions meeting in Cairo will declare the end of the Palestinian rift. The Palestinian leader also said that the general secretaries of the Palestinian factions who attended the meeting thanked President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for hosting the meeting and for his support for the Palestinian people. The meeting was chaired by Abbas and discussed the latest developments in the Palestinian-occupied territories and means of gaining back the national unity in order to confront the challenges facing the Palestinian nation in its drive to restore the non-alienable rights and establish an independent state and sovereign Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. The meeting also sought to cement the resilience of the Palestinian people in facing mountain aggression by the Israeli occupation troops and settlers. Upon his arrival in Egypt on Saturday, the Palestinian president held a meeting with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The Palestinian president comes amid a flare-up of the Israeli violence against the Palestinians in the occupied West Bank that left nearly 160 Palestinians killed this year. And to be shedding more light on this important file, I'm honored to be having with me over the phone for tonight on the Daily Debate, Dr. Noha Bakr, the Professor of Political Science. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be at Nile TV.
Anytime, the pleasure is all mine. Of course, as I just read that there is a meeting, or there was a meeting between the Palestinian factions in the New Alamein city. How do you see the importance of holding this meeting at such a critical time at the New Alamein city or in Egypt in general?
Well, President Abbas called for this meeting following 2 days of Israeli aggression violent attacks in Jenin. Actually, these aggressive attacks have resulted in 13 Palestinians died and 100 others injured. This was really major. The escalation of violence is major. Also, the meeting comes after escalation of tension, ongoing challenges faced by the Palestinians in West Bank, particularly in Jerusalem. This means simply that we need one unit, the unity of the Palestinians together. The factions have to come together. And that's why President Abbas called for this meeting. Why did he call for it in Egypt? Because Egypt has always played the role of the mediator. And it has hosted the gathering of the Palestinian factions before. The aim is to facilitate the dialogue between them and also to bring collaboration among the Palestinian factions. As you mentioned in your while sharing the news with the audience, that there is a need to have an outcome of unity, to have an outcome that can stand and start negotiating and have a stand regarding what's happening in Palestine. Egypt's role is not a new role, as we shared. Egypt has hosted several meetings of the Palestinian factions over the years, since 2007, when the internal division has begun. Egypt has also brokered several ceasefire deals between Israel and Palestinian factions over the past years. All this makes Egypt trustworthy by the Palestinians, by the Israelis, and can play the role among the Israelis, among the Palestinian factions, and between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Yes, Dr. Noha, the Palestinian president, he mentioned today that the internal divisions between the Palestinians should be ended immediately through the elections. Do you see the elections as something that could be saving the situation within Palestine and would be having the results that are being hoped for by the Palestinian president?
Unless we have the factions solved, unless the factions sit together and solve their problems together, the elections will be of very little help. Yes. Actually, we had in this meeting the delegations from Hamas, Fatah, and the Popular Front from the Liberation of the Palestinians. They are participating. But we have still the Islamic Jihad movement boycotting the meeting, claiming that Palestinian authorities are imprisoning its members. This all will actually need to be worked on. It needs to be worked on in order for the elections to be effective.
Yes, Doctor, you mentioned that one of the Palestinian factions is actually boycotting the meetings, and the importance of dialogue, according to the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, is of paramount importance. How do you see the importance of dialogue being held at the first place, and secondly, being held here in Egypt as a leader, as you mentioned before?
Well, actually, the dialogue being held is a good step, is a good first step. But there has to be a political will among the factions to reach an agreement, to reach one unified, solid stand. Because without this, it will be very difficult to continue. And it gives more space for the Israelis to continue their aggressive attacks and for the region to continue its suffering from the Palestinian-Israeli problem. Both Fatah and Hamas, in separate statements, said that they are seeking to unify the Palestinian position and to reach consensus on a unified national strategic plan to confront the occupation. But we still need everyone to join, not only Fatah and Hamas. And there are issues between Fatah and Hamas that needs to be worked in order to reach an agreement. Also, we have to understand that the PLP said in another statement, that it will call for the cancellation of Oslo Accord and obligations resulting from it, and the reconstitution of the Palestinian Liberation Organization with all parties. This is another issue that needs to be handled. Also further, that needs to be handled is that all Arab countries have to stand behind this dialogue, have to support the Palestinians in order to get together and find a solution, in order to be able to sit on the table and negotiate a peace with Israel one day.
Yes, this Palestinian rift, when and how do you think it could be ending? Do you see an end at the end of those negotiations and the elections?
I believe if there is a political will, yes, there will be an end. We need a one strong hand Palestinian unity that can sit for negotiations with a mediator like Egypt that is trusted by the Israelis and the Palestinians. The first step is to work on the Palestinian unity, and from there we can move forward in order to base, maybe the base could be or as Palestinians wish, that the base would be the Arab Peace Initiative and the two-state solution. It is not easy, I know. It has been going for long years, long negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians and the Arabs from the other side. But the first step is to have a united Palestine before.
Yes, following the meeting, the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas thanked President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for hosting this meeting and for the continuous support given to the Palestinian cause. How do you see the role of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in firstly ending the rift between the Palestinian factions, and secondly, and more importantly and more generally, for supporting the Palestinian cause in general?
Egypt has opened its doors even before President al-Sisi since 2007 to bring the factions together. But since Fattah al-Sisi has taken power in Egypt, let's remember that in every General Assembly meeting in the United Nations, he addressed the Palestinians. and the Israelis. And he focuses on the fact that the Palestinian-Israeli conflict has to be solved, and it is the roots of of several problems in our region. And to solving it will be actually resulting in solving other security challenges in the region. Actually, he addressed the Palestinians and the Israelis separately in the United Nations. We've been calling for this in all our discussions, and in the Arab League and on bilateral and multilateral level. Egypt has always been caring about our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and we are aware of the importance of peace and the importance of the development. Also, peace has to be followed by development in order for the Palestinians to be able to live. Actually, the Palestinians have been suffering for years. Our even Palestinian brothers and sisters in Gaza have even been suffering more and more. And we've been trying to support as much as we can on the economic level, on the political level, and on the social level.
Yes, and finally, regarding this topic, Dr. Noha, I know that there is about more than 160 Palestinians were killed this year. As you mentioned, the challenges that are ongoing in the Palestinian territories and in the region in general. How do you think the Israeli aggression against the Palestinians could be stopped, at least for the short term?
Well, Egypt is playing its role, but we need the international community as a whole to play its role, because without the international community support, it will be very difficult to attain pressure on the Israelis, and in order to let them sit on the table, negotiate, and reach an agreement. This is not the problem of today or yesterday. This has been a crisis that has been going for years and years. We need one less crisis in our world that is confronting lots of global challenges.
Yes, Dr. Noha Bakr, the Professor of Political Science, thank you very much for being with us tonight over the phone on the Daily Debate. And we return to the main topic for today. As I mentioned in the beginning, that we will be focusing on the presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi after returning from St. Petersburg, where the Russia-Africa Forum, or the Economic Forum for the Humanitarian Affairs as well, and for the development of bilateral cooperation between Russia and Africa, and more specifically for our sake between Russia and Egypt. A meeting was held on the sidelines of this summit, or this forum, between His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, regarding the boosting of bilateral ties for the future, for the sake of Africa in general. And we have more details regarding those meetings and this summit in the upcoming report. So stay tuned.
President Fattah al-Sisi, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and African leaders discussed priorities for the Russia-Africa partnership during the second Russia-Africa summit. President Sisi's participation in the summit comes in his capacity as the current president of a new partnership for Africa's development, NEPAD, the development arm of the African Union. NEPAD mobilizes financial resources to support Africa's flagship projects under the 2063 African Development Agenda. The organization supports efforts for continental integration, including through the African Continental Free Trade Area. It also supports initiatives. President Fattah al-Sisi, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and African leaders discussed priorities for the Russia-Africa partnership during the second Russia-Africa summit. President al-Sisi's participation in the summit comes in his capacity as the current president of a new partnership for Africa's development, NEPAD, the development arm of the African Union. NEPAD mobilizes financial resources to support Africa's flagship projects under the 2063 African Development Agenda. The organization supports efforts for continental integration, including through the African Continental Free Trade Area. It also supports initiatives aimed at developing Africa's infrastructure and industrial transformation. During the summit, President al-Sisi outlined Egypt's vision on priorities for the Africa-Russia partnership, including enhancing peace and security and strengthening post-conflict reconstruction under the EU. The President also stressed Egypt's leading role in facilitating intra-continental discussions through the Aswan Forum for Peace and Sustainable Development and the host of the African Union's Reconstruction and Development Center. President al-Sisi said that as for the chair of the NEPAD, in the next 2 years, Egypt is determined to promote programs that foster the linkage between peace, security, and development. Cairo was recently contributing to Africa's food security by providing solutions for issues such as food supply, fertilizers, and agricultural technology, and securing the necessary financial support. He added that Egypt remains steadfast in taking concrete and sincere steps to secure necessary financing to support African countries in their efforts to address the challenges of climate change. The second edition of the Russia-Africa Summit was held in St. Petersburg with the participation of 49 countries.
لكل الناس في دايما حلم تحلم بيه، وانا كان حلمي على قدي.